Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Ottawa police have released the names of the 6 people who were killed at an Ottawa area townhome on Wednesday night. Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre brought his Axe the Carbon Tax message to the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade. And we hear the powerful story of a Canadian woman who transitioned to become a man, found Jesus, and is now detransitioning to become a woman again.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Ottawa Police Chief Eric Stubbs says a Sri Lankan mother, her 4 children, and a family friend were all killed by an international student who was living in the house with a family on Wednesday night. Now, originally, police said it was a mass shooting which took place, but later updated the report saying it was a mass killing. Many of the victims were stabbed and not shot as previously reported. 19-year-old Fabio de Soisa has been arrested and charged with 6 counts of first-degree murder.
As multiple units began to arrive, officers identified a suspect who was quickly arrested without incident. Paramedics were also called and were arriving. Officers entered the home to check on the safety of those inside, and that is where they began to discover the 6 victims, the youngest of which is less than 3 months old. The family are newcomers to Canada and are originally from Sri Lanka. We have been working to advise the families of the deceased, many of whom are overseas. The father and husband of the victims was found at the scene and was injured. He was taken to hospital where he is in serious but stable condition. The deceased are 35-year-old Darshani Bombar Anayake Ekanayake. She is the mother of the children. Their 7-year-old son, Anuka Wikrama Singh. Their 4-year-old daughter, Ashwini. Their 2-year-old daughter, Rinayana. And their 2.5-month-old daughter, Kelly. Also found deceased is 40-year-old Americone Gamini Americone, who is an acquaintance of the family who has been living at the home. He recently arrived in Canada.
Neighbours and community members gathered in an Ottawa park on Thursday night for a vigil of the victims of that mass stabbing, which took the lives of the mother, her 4 young children, and a family friend. Mourners brought teddy bears, flowers, and lit candles. Those who gathered near the home in Barhaven, where the tragedy occurred, were asking the same question as police: why did this happen? The father, who survived the knife assault, said he arrived home from his evening cleaning job on Wednesday night, only to be attacked as he entered the townhome. He remains in hospital in stable condition. A cluster of bouquets formed a small memorial outside of a home north of Toronto as the community grieved a family of 5 who were killed in a small plane crash in Nashville, Tennessee. Anne and Leo Amore say the news left them and others in the community simply heartbroken.
They were always very, very pleasant, always, kind and just very respectful when they saw us, and they were just a lovely family, very lovely.
Okay. Yeah, Victor and I used to chat on the driveway. He was always working on his cars. He just loved, his cars and his boats, and very pleasant gentleman. Wonderful family. It's a real tragedy.
Tragedy.
How do you remember the kids?
Just joyful and very, very, exuberant.
Wonderful, beautiful
full
kids.
Of life, just full of life.
The federal government says Canada will resume funding of the UN aid agency for Palestinian refugees in Gaza. Canada was one of 16 nations which temporarily halted future payments in January to the agency known as UNRWA after Israel alleged some of its workers took part in the October 7th Hamas attacks in southern Israel. Government officials say they received and reviewed a report from the UN about the allegations, and the decision is being made in light of information and the terrible humanitarian crisis in Gaza to continue with funding. Canada is due to contribute $25 million to UNRWA in April and did not miss a payment as a result of the pause. Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says the working class in Canada needs more help. He says our country needs less gatekeepers to allow for more business owners to thrive. He announced some of his plan at the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade earlier today. He says it will begin with eliminating the carbon tax should he become Prime Minister.
A carbon tax that is scheduled to quadruple over the next 5.5 years and which will go up on April 1st. Now, the NDP in this province has agreed to implement that tax, where in other provinces the local government has said no, and therefore Trudeau has imposed it from above. Here, the NDP has enthusiastically embraced the goal of raising energy prices on working-class families and has committed to go ahead with the hike this coming April 1st, a 23% carbon tax hike that will make life more expensive for everyday Canadians who are already unable to eat. This is happening in the context of 2 million annual visits, 2 million annual visits to food banks, a massive 32% increase over 8 years ago. And there are now a third of charities in Canada that are actually turning people away from food banks because they do not have enough food for them. And that is why I am announcing today that I'm calling on NDP Premier David Eby and Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh to cancel the April 1st carbon tax hike, spike the hike, and axe the tax.
Today is International Women's Day, a time to really recognize the important contributions women make to enhance the social, economic, and political fabric of our society. Now, did you know that back in 1917, 2 Albertans became the first women elected to public office anywhere in Canada? They were Louise McKinney and Roberta McAdams. Alberta was also home to Nellie Carlson, an early advocate for the rights of First Nations women, and Lethbridge's very own Rosella Bjornson became the first female pilot for a commercial airline in North America. Alberta Minister of Arts, Culture and Status of Women, Tanya Furr, released a statement on International Women's Day, saying, as a government, we continue to support women in fields like science, technology, aviation, the skilled trades, and entrepreneurship with funding to help women enter and stay in these particular fields. Kelly Lynn Peary began her life as a girl, but later she decided to transition and become a man. She then found Jesus and decided to detransition to become a woman once again. She says it's been quite the journey for her.
The pastor has been absolutely amazing. He was like because I had a huge beard when I started coming here, and it was about a month, and I said, Robin, I need to tell you something. I was born a girl, and I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was, how can I help you in your walk with Christ? They got me into reading my Bible again, which has just been, it's opened my heart.
Make sure you catch the emotional and powerful story of Kelly Lynn Peary with the Detransition Alliance coming up later in our broadcast. Well, we enjoyed another beautiful day here in Lethbridge. Jeanette Rocher is now with an early peek at the forecast. Jeanette, we enjoyed some mild temperatures today, and a beautiful spring-like weekend is shaping up.
Yeah, it sure is, Hal, despite the Chinook winds, of course, but that's what makes it so warm. And as we saw today, we saw those westerly winds gusting up to 60 kilometers per hour. We saw a daytime high of 9 degrees. And as we get into tomorrow, Saturday, it's going to be even warmer and a bit less windy. So 30 to 50K winds. And then that double-digit day there, high of 11 degrees. As we get into the days after that, we're seeing 9s and 10s and 11s. So it's going to get much warmer. And I'll be back later in the show to give you all those details.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeanette. Alberta RCMP say they've completed their investigation surrounding the 2017 UCP leadership vote. One allegation during the race was that candidate Jeff Callaway, who ended up dropping out and supporting Jason Kenney, entered the contest solely to attack another candidate. Police say the investigation did not uncover evidence to establish that Callaway or any other person committed a criminal offense. There was also an allegation of voter fraud during the campaign. RCMP say they did not find any evidence that any leadership candidate encouraged their volunteers to engage in identity fraud. Police also say the service provider for the online voting platform used by the UCP was not compromised and worked exactly as specified. The Alberta government says if Budget 2024 passes, $55 million will be invested toward a new multidisciplinary science hub at the University of Calgary. Officials say the new hub will become the primary home for research and collaboration in the Faculty of Science at the U of C and help address the gap in STEM talent shortages here in Alberta. They say the hub will add around 2,000 seats to science-related programs to help deliver essential workplace skills for students.
This will create new opportunities for scientific research and collaboration with partners in government, industry, and society that will benefit Alberta, Canada, and the entire world. Alberta's government will make an investment of $55 million starting in the 2025-26 budget year. And with the university contributing the funding for the first year of construction, we will see shovels in the ground for the multidisciplinary science hub very soon. This investment and the others in Budget 2024 recognize the crucial role post-secondary institutions play in meeting the needs of our economy.
Our province's technology and innovation sector will be receiving a financial boost thanks to cybersecurity firm Fortinet in downtown Calgary. Jobs Minister Matt Jones says the $30 million investment will create a number of new jobs for the province.
Fortinet aims to create 85 new permanent jobs and 80 temporary jobs. This adds to the roughly 50 Fortinet jobs already in our province today and provides current and future employees an innovative workplace which boasts a state-of-the-art cybersecurity center of excellence that will deliver world-class cybersecurity technologies and solutions across all sectors. And with the location of this new facility in downtown Calgary, this investment aligns with the government's commitments to revitalize our downtown centres. Bringing in this cutting-edge facility will help to ensure downtown Calgary remains vibrant, diverse, and a safe place for businesses and community members to succeed for years to come.
An Alberta man is heading to trial next year on a charge of murder in the death that occurred close to 50 years ago. The trial for Ronald Edwards has been put off till next March in Calgary. He's charged with non-capital murder, which is how the charge was defined in the criminal code at the time of the death of 16-year-old Pauline Brazeau. Edwards was charged after cold case detectives used genetic genealogy to re-examine the case. A 53-year-old man from Granham has been sentenced to a year in prison for interfering with a dead body. Edward Alexander Goodrich pleaded guilty to the charge in Lethbridge after he helped dispose the body of Lane Tailfeathers after he was brutally beaten to death. Randy Lee Giroux was charged with second-degree murder in Tailfeathers' death. The Crown said Goodrich was recruited to help clean up the gory scene and to get rid of the body. On June 20th of 2021, Tailfeathers was attacked at a residence in Fort Macleod. Giroux, along with Richard Lavelle and Miranda Turek, wanted to send a message about a drug debt. Turek and Lavelle have been charged with second-degree murder and interfering with a dead body. A round dance along with a procession are set to go in downtown Winnipeg. Many First Nations community members are calling for the city to search for the remains of 4 Indigenous women at the Prairie Green landfill. The event is sponsored by the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. Organizers are calling to immediately begin looking for the remains of Morgan Harris, Rebecca Contois, Mercedes Myron, and an unidentified Indigenous woman the leaders refer to as Buffalo Woman. Well, it was nice being above our seasonal values for this time of year in southwestern Alberta, which is around 4 degrees. We may even hit double-digit plus temperatures tomorrow. Full weather details are coming up. We are set to spring forward an hour as we head to daylight saving time on Sunday. You know that extra hour of sunlight will be most welcomed. Jeanette Roger is now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, spring is just around the corner and then summer will be here before you know it. What I enjoy most about July and August outside of the heat is that you can be barbecuing at 9:30 or 10 o'clock and still have a little bit of sunlight.
Oh, me too, Hal. I completely agree. Those long days of summer just around the corner with all that sunlight. Loving it. And also what I'm loving, this forecast here, look at this. Look at all these pluses and some double digits, including tomorrow. High of 11 degrees on Saturday and then mainly clear skies for the next 3 days. A couple of 9s there on Sunday and Monday. High of 10 degrees on Tuesday, 10 again on Wednesday, and then looking at a high of 11 again on Thursday. So we're well above our seasonal average. So average high for this time of year, 4 degrees. We're going to be well above that all week. -8 the average low. 19 was our high temperature on this day back in 2004. And the low temperature was -38. That happened back in 2002. Sun rose this morning. Look at this. We're now in the 6 o'clock hour there. 6:58 a.m. was when the sun rose. Sunset this evening, 6:27. We're getting so close to 12 hours. We're just under 11 and a half hours of sunlight. We were standing at 4 minutes longer than we were yesterday. Okay, on the west coast tomorrow, it's a bit of a windy and wet one. 10 degrees for a high in Victoria. Showers beginning in the morning, 50 to 70 winds there. 8 for a high in Vancouver. 10 to 15 millimeters of rain expected tomorrow, and up to 50 winds and 70 winds near the Strait of Georgia. In Alberta, we're looking at a mix of sun and cloud. High of 9 degrees in Edmonton and 8 for a high in Calgary. As we get into the rest of the prairies, we're seeing, not bad, mainly clear skies for most of the prairies there. 2 for a high in Saskatoon. Nice to see those pluses. Still seeing those cold wind chill values in the morning, though, particularly early. -2 for a high in Regina, and -5 is the expected high tomorrow in Winnipeg. Still with those cold wind chill values in the morning. Central Canada looking at a high of 8 degrees in Toronto, 10 to 15 millimeters of rain there. Significant rain is expected tonight through tomorrow night in Ottawa. Could see 20 to 40 millimeters in total, along with a risk of freezing rain and some snow. 10 for a high tomorrow, though. 10 also expected in Montreal. Now, Montreal, there is a weather pattern moving over that area that's going to bring mixed precipitation throughout the weekend, and that could last right through Monday. That begins Saturday evening. Okay, as we get into the Maritimes, high of 6 in Fredericton, 8 for a high in Halifax, and a lovely 5 degrees in Charlottetown. Sunshine across those 3 cities. Now in St. John, still seeing that winter storm warning in effect tonight, lasting until tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, still seeing 2 to 4 centimeters of snow, also some blowing snow, and up to 70 winds there. High of 0, though. There you have it. That is your forecast.
A leading Canadian economist says our country's latest unemployment report shows that we're still being impacted by massive population gains and that the labor market is starting to cool. BMO chief economist Douglas Porter is reacting to news that the economy added 41,000 jobs in February as the unemployment rate rose to 5.8%. That is up 1/10 of a point from January. Stats Canada reports the job gains were driven by full-time employment, with the strongest employment growth in accommodation and food services. The Canada Pension Plan Investment Board is committed to invest around $3 billion as part of an investor group buying a telecommunications network in Italy from Telecom Italia. Under the agreement, CPP Investments will acquire a 17.5% stake in Netco as part of a transaction that values the business at $27.5 million. The investor group buying the company is led by Kohlberg Kravis Roberts, a wholly owned subsidiary of the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, the Italian Infrastructure Fund F2I, and the Italian Ministry of Economy and Finance. The deal is expected to close later this summer. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 57 points on the day to finish at 21,737. The Dow was down 68 points to 38,722. The S&P 500 was down 33 on the day to 5123, and the Nasdaq was down 188 points to 16,085. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down $1.15 to $77.78 US per barrel. Natural gas was down a cent to $1.81 US. Gold was up $18.97 on the day to $21.78.95 US an ounce, and silver was down 2 cents to $24.31 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.16 per bushel, barley's at $6.12, canola's at $13.81, and corn is at $7.36 per bushel. Live cattle April contract was down $1.13 to $187.60. Feeder cattle were down $1.83 to $249.20, and lean hogs April contract was down 15 cents to $84.38. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 74.17 US. Recapping one of our top stories, Alberta RCMP say they've completed their investigation surrounding the 2017 UCP leadership vote. One allegation during the race was that candidate Jeff Callaway, who ended up dropping out and supporting Jason Kenney, entered the contest solely to attack another candidate. Police say the investigation did not uncover evidence to establish that Callaway or any other person committed a criminal offense. There was also an allegation of voter fraud during the campaign. RCMP say they did not find any evidence that any leadership candidate encouraged their voters to engage in identity fraud. Police also say the service provider for the online voting platform used by the UCP was not compromised and worked exactly as specified. Coming up, a very powerful story of a woman who transitioned to become a man, then found Jesus and went back to becoming a woman again. hear the powerful testimony and story of Kelly Lynn Peary of the Detransition Alliance in just a few moments. Listen, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. Also, be sure to visit our website anytime to check out a number of local stories and interviews. Recent changes to legislation and rules in Alberta initiated by Premier Daniel Smith regarding trans children and youth rights have created a lot of debate. Changes including reassignment surgery, hormones, and sports participation have a lot of people talking here in our province. Many within the LGBTQ2+ community are outraged, while a number of parent groups have applauded the moves here by our provincial government. Kelly Lynn Peary has some strong feelings on the subject and some of the changes. She'll share her personal journey through gender-affirming care and her eventual decision to detransition and start Trans Alliance Canada. Kelly, welcome to Bridge City News. You're joining us from what, British Columbia?
Yes, Ashton Creek specifically.
Wonderful. Outside of Salmon Arm?
Yes.
Beautiful country. Now, Kelly, how would you best define Trans Alliance Canada?
It is an outreach for people who have gone into transitioning to some degree and are desisting. Those are generally people who started transitioning at the social level, perhaps started hormones, and then recognize that they are a boy or a girl and have returned to being in their sex. Detransitioners are generally people who are seen as having been on wrong sexed hormones for a period of years, where there's been actual physiological changes in their appearance, and or have had surgery. Um, and then regretters are those who recognize that transitioning wasn't the right thing for them, but they feel stuck with the medical interventions that have altered their appearance. And yeah.
So how would you best describe your experience with transitioning and then detransitioning? Now it really influenced your current work with Trans Alliance Canada.
I was 2 years sober, and I found that I was increasingly uncomfortable um, being seen as a woman, and I was a pretty woman. Um, and I was, I felt exposed um, to the predatory gazes of men or women. And it seemed like being a male would allow me to escape that. And also just my experiences during my youth, I thought that boys had a better life, had an easier life.
Did you grow up a tomboy? I know my mother did. She played a lot of sports, a lot of baseball. She wanted to play football with the boys. Did you maybe grow up a bit of a tomboy as well when you were younger?
I grew up in a lower middle class farm family. So a lot of the things I was interested in would have been seen as tomboy by like the greater cultural context. Within my family, I was a very typical girl. Um, but like horses and baseball and basketball and volleyball and sports that are seen in the greater context of Western culture as being more masculine, they were definitely part of my interests. Yeah, for sure. Um,
So, Kelly, what made you choose to become trans originally as a young person? What was the real allure for you?
my mother married a pedophile when I was less than 3 years old. So his world was centered around his deviance. So it was very much escaping being female. The older I got, especially when puberty set in, I was uncomfortable with a female body. I didn't actually start transitioning until my late 30s. The discomfort I had as a kid, especially like 14, 15, I started turning more to drugs and alcohol, um, to just be in social settings. It seemed like alcohol made all the uncomfortable, awkward feelings just um it gave a sense of ease, um, that ended up a monkey on my back for a lot of years.
Did this man try anything with you when you were younger?
Yes, when I was 13 years old, he went to jail for sexually interfering with a minor in his care.
Oh, my word.
Um, yeah.
Wow.
And, that was one thing that, even though I talked about that, to the psychiatrist who did the surgery readiness assessments, is what they were called in British Columbia at that time. They no longer do those. Um, I talked about that with them, but they never explored that. They never stepped into that. They never said, they never explored how does that impact your comfort with being a woman in this society, and how does being pretty um impact, like none of that was explored or looked at all. I was listening to a woman who works quite a bit with LGBT people, especially college students, and she like unpacked in 90 seconds my motivations for transitioning. And the psychiatrist that I worked with for 2 years um, never explored any of that, because she was like, "Eh, how would any young girl who'd been sexualized by a child grow up to want to embrace womanhood?" And I'm like, yeah, this is painfully obvious to somebody who doesn't know me at all, and is like, that needs to be explored. Um, like I was at the beginning of the affirmation model in British Columbia. So I started the process 2003, 2004, 2005, like that was my beginnings. And whereas before, um, things would have been explored more deeply, it was just, okay, does this person present well? And I was very good at presenting while I was working as a drug and alcohol counselor at the time. So I was good at knowing how to present.
So, Kelly, how has being trans become so mainstream right now as opposed to the 70s and 80s when I grew up? I mean, many of us had never even heard of it.
Well, this thing they call queer theory has influenced and just slowly saturated um, everything, and it's this idea of deconstructing normal, deconstructing normativity, and now it's gone as far as they're seeking to deconstruct childhood innocence. Um, and that my older brother telling me about what was happening with Soji 123 was the beginning of my going from transitioning is something I regret, and I recognize that it hasn't helped, to um, I need to detransition, and I need to start speaking out against this, because I cannot be associated with they're defending the rights of convicted rapists to be a convicted male rapist. They're defending the rights of him to be incarcerated in a woman's jail because he says, "Oh, I experience myself as being female." And it's like, yeah, no, that's like, I can't follow them down that rabbit hole. Um,
Speaking of experience, let's talk about your experience by taking testosterone. And is it reversible?
um, well, some of the effects are pretty permanent. Um, yeah, I've got a fringe around my head for hair left. Um, Other effects, like my voice, my voice will never be back into the range of female normal. Um, Physiologically, I will be a diabetic for the rest of my life. That's now known to be a common side effect for women who are on wrong sexed hormones. Uh, every cell in my body from conception driven by the DNA is designed to be under a specific hormonal bath. And when you introduce the wrong sexed hormones into that bath, there are long-term consequences. And when I first started taking testosterone, 2004, 2005, the doctors I was working with were like, "Oh no, it's like half the human population is safely on testosterone. You're not going to have any consequences to this at all. You'll have just, the same risks as any other quote unquote male." And now it's well known. Brain fog. I had been 8 years, so I was in my early to mid 40s, and I started noticing that I just felt it was like I was walking through jello some days, and that's a well-known side effect of testosterone for women. Um,
Kelly, may I ask you, Kelly, did you go ahead with any surgery?
I had a hysterectomy in 2006 and a bilateral mastectomy in 2008. Yeah, and those are
So let me ask you something. At what point in time in your life did you say, you know what, this really isn't for me, and you decided to detransition?
2010 was when I recognized that this is not for me. I left Vancouver on a Friday. I applied for 4 trucking jobs on a Saturday. On the Monday morning, I had 3 job offers. The next week, I left Vancouver and went long haul trucking. 2018, 2019, I recognized that I needed to begin to speak out against just how insane this idea of transitioning children was. Um, 2022, I really recognized that I need to figure out what detransitioning is going to look like for me. December 2023, I found a doctor who was willing to prescribe me estrogen, and I began taking estrogen again. Um, I mid teens, so 2016, 2017, I started just taking enough testosterone to stave off menopause. Because, of course, for a woman who's had a hysterectomy, um, when you come off of the testosterone, then menopause sets in. And I've learned recently that there's actually protocols for how to detox off of the testosterone. Because for some women coming off, they experience really severe postpartum depression. Um, so there's a protocol for coming off of the testosterone and starting the estrogen so that you don't go into a deep depression for a
Wow.
period of a year or more.
So Kelly, what has the support been like from your friends and family, first of all, when you decided to transition and then detransition? Your journey.
I recently described transitioning as a incredibly selfish and willful um, decision that was like a train wreck running through the lives of my family and friends. Um, my Christian family were absolutely devastated. I did not tell them when I started transitioning. I didn't talk to them about it at all. I was 2 years in testosterone after my hysterectomy when I let them know what I had done and the decisions I had made. So um, yeah, they were absolutely um, devastated. I think is the only word to adequately describe it. They've been an incredible support to me as I have detransitioned. Um, I they, um, I have a prayer group. I have a support group. My female cousins have just really welcoming and embracing and meeting me where I'm at and helping me as I like navigating the world back into being female. And that's the biggest lie about transition is that it will fix all of this stuff. Like it'll fix what I feel awkward about. It'll fix what I feel uncomfortable about. And it doesn't do that.
Has your faith really then helped you during this process and journey of detransitioning then?
It's I walk on, yeah. It's my solid ground. Um, I Ashton Creek Fellowship is the church that I go to, and the men there, it's a safe place to be seen as a woman. Um, they're really respectful. They're very grounded in their relationship with God. Um, and it's the pastor has been absolutely amazing. He was like when I because like I had a huge beard when I started coming here, and I do this about a month, and I said, Robin, I need to tell you something. I was born a girl. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was, "How can I help you in your walk with Christ? How can I help?" Like that was, and for a year and a half, we met about once a month, and that has always been their focus is, um, how can we help you reconnect with God? Yeah, they got me into reading my Bible again, which has just been, it's opened my heart.
Wonderful. Kelly, we only have a few short moments left here, but I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on some of the legislation passed by Alberta Premier Daniel Smith here?
Very excited about it. I'm involved with Parents' Rights Coalition of Canada, Our Duty Canada, and that she's standing her ground in face of all of the controversy that's coming at her. And we're very hopeful that the WPATH files that are coming out now will just help her to remain strong and true to what she has said she's going to do. So.
What advice would you give to someone currently considering transitioning, or maybe a parent of a child that's questioning their gender?
There are amazing resources out of the United States. There's the Portland Fellowship, there's the Restore Network, there's the Restory. Um, it's hard to find any resources within Canada anymore because of our conversion therapy um, law that got passed. Um, Online resources are still there and still available and can still be accessed. Slow down. Um, get curious, ask questions. Stop, don't do that is gonna just push the child into rebellion. So just get really curious about what it is that's going on for them. What is it that they're hearing? Where did they get this message? Um, and what is it about being a little girl that has you feeling uncomfortable? Why are you thinking that being a boy is something that you are? Because some parents are going to find out that kids were just told, "Oh, you have short hair, um, so you're a boy." Um, I've run into a situation where a teenage girl, so she would have been 14 at the beginning. So she started hanging out with some boys. She had a crush on one of the boys. So she started hanging out with this group of boys who were like a little on the rough side. And she was told by the counselor that, "Oh, you're hanging out with boys because you're a gay boy."
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a boy thing. So get really curious about what are the messages, excuse me, that your kids are hearing that has them thinking um, that they're not really a boy or a girl. Because true acceptance is about accepting it's about allowing the child to be a boy however they're a boy, or be a girl however they're a girl. Because God made us. Femininity is a characteristic of being a girl. It's a characteristic of being feminine, female. Masculinity is a characteristic of being male. So yeah, what is it about um, how they are or the messages that they're hearing that has them thinking that they're not who they are?
Kelly Lynn Perry is with D-Trans Alliance Canada. Thanks so much for joining us today from beautiful British Columbia.
I appreciate it.
March is Multiple Myeloma Awareness Month, and today we're going to learn more about this type of cancer and what kinds of treatments and supports are available. Our guest has battled myeloma himself and is the head of the Lethbridge Myeloma Support Group. He joins us here in the windy city of Lethbridge. Brian Treadwell, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thanks, Nav. Thanks for inviting me to Bridge City News.
Great to have you on. So, Brian, can you explain to our viewers what myeloma is and how Canadians are battling this disease?
Okay, first of all, let's answer the second question first. Though classified as a rare disease, myeloma is the second most common form of blood cancer. In 2022, nearly 4,000 Canadians were diagnosed with myeloma, and currently 11 Canadians are diagnosed every day with the disease.
Wow.
Yeah. So as far as myeloma itself, and here's the medical part, and I don't want to get too medical on it, but it's a blood cancer associated with the abnormal behavior of uncontrolled growth of plasma cells. That's the white blood cell. Plasma cells are made in the spongy part of your bone, and they're an important part of your immune system because they produce the antibodies. Okay, and in myeloma, too many plasma cells are produced and they crowd out the good cells like red blood cells and platelets that our body needs to keep us healthy. And when you have numerous areas in your body affected by these growths, the disease is called multiple myeloma.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. And so what are the symptoms of myeloma then?
Okay, some of the common primary symptoms are bone pain, anemia, extreme fatigue, reoccurring infections, and kidney problems. However, anything unexplained should be referred to your doctor so he or she can refer you on to a hematologist. And those people are the ones that make the specific diagnosis.
And is there a known cure?
No, currently it's incurable. However, great strides are being made in increasing both the quality and quantity of survivability of diagnosed patients. A decade ago, the survivability was about 5 years, but now with research and new drugs and treatments, people are living 5, 10, 15, 20 years and longer past their initial diagnosis. So
Wow.
that's the good news.
That is some good news. And what kinds of treatments are available, and which kinds of treatments seem to be having the most success?
Okay, because myeloma is, well, I call it a designer disease. It designs itself around you. Your medical team will decide what's the best treatment for you. It's all depending on your age and your other health factors. You may have a stem cell transplant or not. I had a stem cell transplant, and since I had a stem cell transplant, even the protocol has changed for treatment then. So treatment is always changing for the better because they find all sorts of new things, new ways of treating it. So it's an ongoing process. So I can't tell you exactly what it's going to be.
Well, I mean, so you're a myeloma survivor yourself. So can you just tell us what life with myeloma is like?
Well, as far as treatments go, what are having the most success? Well, stem cell transplants, CAR T therapies. Your doctor sort of gives you a designated treatment plan to put the cancer cells into remission. And that's the best possible way because it's incurable. The best place to get is to have it go into remission. And therapies evolve. Treatment works for a period of time that you're in remission. But then cancer, it's smart. It adjusts itself to those drugs and it says, okay, I'm used to it, so now I'm going to grow again. So then you become what they call relapsed. So the doctors have to go and find a new drug to go on and put you on. And you go on that for a while and go back into remission. And then the drug gets smart again, or the cancer gets smart again and says, okay, I like this, I'm going to grow again. So this dance goes on and on and on until you get back in and you run out of known drugs and you're put into what they call refractory because you're at the end of the line. So what happens then is your team has to look for drug trials, which aren't approved, by Health Canada. It's not a known, produced, but it's done at universities and specific things like that. So you hope to get on drug trials, and a lot of people are on them, and their survivability is increasing again. So it's an interesting dance. Here in Alberta, the University of Calgary has world class researchers, and they're coming up with some great new drugs. And I have one lady in our group that's been on there for about 5 years with a trial drug, and she was initially on palliative care, and she's gone to just blossoming on this trial drug.
Wow,
She's
amazing.
doing really well. So that's giving some great hope.
And going back to living with myeloma,
Mm.
in your experience, was there pain, discomfort?
Well, for me, yours truly, I have anemia, which gives low hemoglobin. So always being tired, and that's no fun. Of late, I've been dealing with having to going for blood transfusions, and so it's an interesting dance. I had a stem cell transplant in 2021, and there's a whole battery of tests that lead up to going through that. And your doctor has to decide whether you're a good candidate for having a stem cell transplant. It's based on age and your health factors again. Now they're treating based on that whether you have a stem cell transplant or whether you don't, and your drugs that you take um, are adjusted specifically for that. So as far as day-to-day life, uh, there's good days, there's bad days, there's in between days. So you just, as Christy Lane sang, one day at a time.
One day at a time.
Yeah.
Now, do we know anything about what causes myeloma?
Yeah, that's a good question. Everybody asks what causes it. We really don't know. We really don't know. Some say the environment, others say it could be pesticides. We're not really sure. No. The cure, that's what we're after.
Absolutely. Now, are there any ethnicities or age demographics who are more susceptible to getting myeloma?
Well, the median age for diagnosis is 65, though I've heard as young as 35. Primarily, it's 70s and 80s that get diagnosed. And there's more of a prevalence for Asian and Afro American heritage. So it can be anybody. Let's face it, it can be anybody.
And I want to go back to your experience. When you were diagnosed with myeloma, what was your reaction and how has your journey been battling this disease?
Well, it's funny. I have to give credit to my family physician. He was tired of seeing me complaining about always being tired. So he finally said, I've got to send you to Dr. Benke. And my hematologist sent me up to Calgary with a battery of tests. And I went back to see him for the diagnosis. And he came in and sat down beside me and took a deep breath and said, you have multiple myeloma. So I just went, okay, so what do we do next? That's the thing. I wasn't no woes me, whatever.
It just didn't phase you. You were just like, okay, how do we tackle this? How do we get this?
Exactly. How do we get on with it and live life and adjust ourselves accordingly? I wasn't going to give up and throw in the towel or anything like that. Okay, go with the hand you're dealt.
Well, what a great attitude to have towards it as well. Now, you lead the Lethbridge Myeloma Support Group. Can you share what a typical meeting might look like?
Have you ever seen a wrestling match? No, it's catch as catch can. We do a little bit of everything. There's no formal meeting because meetings get bogged down in red tape and all sorts of stuff. We sit around in a group when we can be outside because that's the best place to be. Um, in the fact that myeloma, you're immunocompromised, so you don't want to pick up diseases from other people. In the winter months, yeah, Zoom is the preference, but we'll go to Timmy's and sit around and have coffees and things like that. But we'll go down to Henderson Park and sit around and share stories. The thing is, it's just being able to mix and mingle with people who share the same disease, and we all talk about how we react differently to the same drug. Because, as I said, it's a designer disease. We all react differently to the same drug that we're given. The side effects affect us differently.
And to what degree does myeloma affect the way one lives their lives day to day? Like, are there certain things you need to avoid? Are there certain precautions you need to take? You talked about masking and being immunocompromised.
It's frustrating because at times you can't plan things. Um, the way you adjust is the way it's individual. You'll hear a different story from each person that you talk to that has myeloma. Some are going on as if there's nothing wrong with them, and that's a great attitude, and that's good, you know. So you just have to watch what you do. Um, we're not skydiving because it involves your bones and things like that. Some of us don't ride bicycles or do things that will cause us, that will fall off, and hurt ourselves. Or, as I said, I'm not going in the wrestling ring, and we're not doing anything like that. Um, Plans change. As I said, if you're not feeling good, it's okay to stay home. And you're when you're in doubt, talk to your doctor, talk to your medical team. They'll tell you what you should do or you shouldn't do, and talk to a dietitian if you need specific things you need to adjust for your diet and things like that.
Now, this doesn't look like it affected you based on the way you responded to being diagnosed, but is it common for depression to set in? And what advice can you offer to help prevent this from happening?
Oh, yeah. I'm an old broadcaster, so I've got almost 40 years of faking it till I make it, okay? I can get behind the microphone and sound like I'm on top of the world. But behind and underneath, it's a completely different story. It's like a duck in the water. But any life-changing thing like diagnosis like that, it's bound to change your psyche. I admit every now and then I have a little pity party, but you've got to keep a positive outlook. Absolutely, surround yourself with positive people. Read positive things, listen to positive music. Don't go on the internet. Oh, the internet, it's the bane of people with diseases because you get so much misinformation out there. And I'll say more about that in a moment. But the disease hasn't robbed me of my sense of humor. Maybe you haven't caught on to that, but Monty Python's, always keep on the sunny side of life.
Life
You've ever
of
seen the
Brian.
video for that? Yeah.
And any final thoughts on winning the battle against myeloma, and any final thoughts in general? You were talking about misinformation.
Yeah, I always say to anybody I talk to, if you're going to go on the internet, go to Myeloma Canada's website, myeloma.ca. That's where you're going to find the most current information about myeloma. It's been rebranded and refreshed, and it's got the most current information, research, pamphlets, YouTube videos. It's just chock full of things. It has contact information. We have over 45 support group network groups across Canada. So whether you're in Sydney, Nova Scotia, or out in Tofino, BC, or up north, you're going to find groups in your province that you can connect with, whether it be virtually on Zoom or in person, and get a hold of them. And any of the leaders will be happy to get a hold of you and talk to you on your level about where you are in your journey with myeloma, because they've been where you are. And that's one good thing about it. We're not paid volunteers or anything like that. We're people who are living myeloma, just as you are living myeloma. If I'm talking to you as a myeloma patient.
Brian Treadwell is the leader of the Lethbridge Myeloma Support Group. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
I'm Naveen Day on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.